biosphere reserves as the learning places for sustainable development, and it says a lot of things for testing interdisciplinary approaches to understanding, managing interaction, etc., etc. All that's fine. But the most important is it says it's the learning phase for sustainable development. That's the phase where you understand what sustainable development is all about. Now, what are the objectives that we seek to achieve when we earmark an area as biosphere reserve? What are the objectives that we seek to achieve? The keywords alone, if you remember, it will help you. The first one is very obvious. Conservation of biodiversity and cultural diversity. In fact, it talks cultural diversity also, but we limit it to biodiversity. That's the primary one. Now I'm going to make the third bullet point is the second one. The research, monitoring, education, and training is the second objective. Third objective is also an interestingly economic development, that is socio-culturally and environmentally sustainable, which means sustainable development. Okay. So look at these three things carefully. It strives to achieve these three objectives: conservation, research, monitoring, education, and training, economic development. Okay. And these three functions are directly mapped to all these three functions are directly mapped to three zones of a biosphere reserve. Three zones of a biosphere reserve. The first zone, conservation of biodiversity, that's called as the core zone. We have a slide on that. The second one, where research, monitoring, and education is permitted, that's called as the buffer zone. The third part, where economic development is permitted, which means human habitation is possible, that is called as the transition zone. Yeah. So three objectives or three functions of biosphere, it gets a one-to-one mapping for the three zones of biosphere reserves. Let's go on and understand what is this core area. Yeah, so there is this picture also. Nothing much in this except that one interesting thing that you're seeing is human settlement is allowed in which zone? In the transition zone. Okay, now you link it to here. Transition zone, economic development. So human beings are allowed, some form of agriculture is allowed, non-timber forest produce, collection, minor forest produce, all that is allowed in this area. That's very important for you to remember. If someone says in biosphere reserve, no human intervention is allowed, that is incorrect statement. That is one part of biosphere reserve where human intervention is allowed. In fact, it is encouraged because that's how, because what is UNESCO saying, it is calling it as a learning phase for sustainable development. So in sustainable development, you need environment, you need socio-cultural, you also need economic. So all three, when they merge together, then only you'll have sustainable development. No? Okay. Now let's come back to the three zones or three functions of biosphere reserves. The first one is the core area. So what does it say? Effectively protected and minimally disturbed. Minimally disturbed. Hardly, if any, intervention is allowed. The only criteria for the core area is it should be large enough to support population of all trophic levels, because then only it will become a self-contained unit. No? If your core area is very small, then most probably certain species will spill over to your buffer area, which you don't want. So you make the core area itself as bigger, so that all the required trophic levels, that is plants, herbivore, carnivore, omnivore, all of them are included in the core area. That's your core area. Then comes buffer area. Buffer area is what? This. Yeah? First is core, the next level is buffer area, which is there at the bottom of your screen. Buffer area is what? This is an area which helps in the protection of core area through research and educational activities. So what does this mean? Maybe there is a setup of the environmentalist. People go to this buffer area, they camp in the buffer area, try to, let's say, go a little further, almost to the corner of the core area, and understand the movement of the various organisms, that is the protected organism in this case, a species in this case, be it a tiger or a plant species or whatever. Yeah. So research and education. So that's your buffer area. Here also, only certain selected persons are let in. Not everyone can let in. Third one is the transition area. Communities foster socio-culturally and economically sustainable economic and So this is your transition area. So transition area, while we say that ecologically sustainable economic activities and human settlements are there, but settlement does not mean multi-story building. Okay, settlement means in a very village type of a settlement where people go about using the forest for their own benefit in a way that it does not destroy the forest. Okay, so these are the three areas of biosphere reserves. So this is the theory about biosphere reserves. I'm sure it's easy for us to understand. Let's look at biosphere reserves in India. Okay, biosphere reserves in India. Now, certain parts, if you can think and answer. So India has 18 biosphere reserves. 18, 1 8. So it has 18 biosphere reserves. Now, some of these biosphere reserves are part of a world network of biosphere reserves. So there is this UNESCO program called as World Network of Biosphere Reserves, also called as the Man and Biosphere Reserve Program. Have you heard of it? Man and Biosphere Reserve Program. So how many of the 18 do you think is part of Man and Biosphere Reserve Program? Good. So you have 12. 12 out of 18 are part of Man and Biosphere Reserve Program. And when you look at India's Biosphere Reserve, it spans across the entire of India actually. And any area, what was India's first Biosphere Reserve? Means it was made as a Biosphere Reserve way back in 1986. Any idea? Can someone guess? Nilgiri, excellent question. Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. Yeah. And if Nilgiri was the first, the latest one, the 18th one is Panna. Yeah, Panna in Madhya Pradesh. Yeah, that's correct. 18th one is Panna in Madhya Pradesh. And one thing very important. Please take a map of India. Try to locate these biosphere reserves. It will help you. Trust me, it will help you. Yeah, because once you locate these biosphere reserves, you will be surprised to find that some of the tiger reserves are very close to biosphere reserves. Some of the national parks are also part of this biosphere reserves. Okay, I want you to have a sense of where these 18 biosphere reserves are spread out. Really helps. Okay, so that's on the biosphere reserve. Now, and yeah, I also kind of found out the largest Great Run of Kutch, the largest biosphere reserves in terms of area, 12,000 square kilometers, followed by Gulf of Mannar. Gulf of Mannar is a marine biosphere reserve. We have discussed this in the last class. Yeah, Run of Kutch, followed by Gulf of Mannar. Okay, so let's move further. That's what I have. So the 12 that I'm referring to, those 12 are mentioned in red color. Yeah. So only those ones which are not in red, they are normal biosphere reserves, they are not part of Man and Biosphere Reserve Program. So out of 18, 12 are part of Man and Biosphere Reserve Program. Any idea which state is Panna? Oh, I have also given the state. Okay, Panna is Madhya Pradesh, and it's the most recent.